Happy New Year. The January 3rd meeting of the Common Council, City of Oneonta, is called to order.
Mayor Burnett.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Edisberg.
Here.
Councilmember Bryan. Here. Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Rafter.
Here.
Councilmember Falco. Here.
Wonderful. And if we could join Councilmember Harrington in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I love to start off a council meeting, especially the first one of the year, with a presentation. This is you, right? Yep. You can sit for this if you want, because it's long and I read slowly. Okay. Stan Schaefer obtained a BS in biology from SUNY Oneonta in 1972. Thoroughly enjoying the field of environmental science, conservation, and scientific innovation in the biological sciences, and he was hired by the City of Oneonta as an operator trainee at the Roger G. Hughes Water Treatment Plant on October 31st, 1979, and has since dedicated his career to providing excellent drinking water to the people of Oneonta. There's more. He was certified as a Grade 2A Community Water Systems Operator in 1981, and eventually as a Grade 1A Operator in 1991. Stan was promoted to Chief Operator in 1990 and has filled that role ever since. Now, over the past 43 plus years, the finished water produced by the plant has met or exceeded all public health standards in treated drinking water. A major contributing factor to the consistently high quality of Oneonta's drinking water has been Stan's commitment to continuous improvement, having researched and implemented many controls, procedures, and programs to ensure compliance with all state and federal regulations. So since he initiated the program in 1985, college students majoring in the environmental sciences, biology, chemistry, and water resources have worked under Stan's direction to research various treatment techniques and technologies in the plant laboratory. Now, Stan was a recipient of the New York Section American Water Works Association's 2017 Operators Meritorious Service Award in recognition of his outstanding career accomplishments. We are very fortunate and thankful that Stan will continue to work part-time at the water treatment plant, because it seems he just can't get enough. Now with that, Stan, if you would join me, and actually, Stan, I'm going to ask Chris and Greg to join us, and we're going to face our camera here, but first, let me say congratulations. Carrie here for a picture so that we've got that for our website. And Stan, if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, I just like to, I couldn't have done anything I've done without the complete support of all of you people and all of your predecessors. Very important, and I just think that I always love my job. I never had to worry about getting up in the morning and going to work. It was sort of like something I really enjoyed, so it's been a pleasure.
Stan, congratulations.
No problem, thanks.
And with that, we have our city health officer here, Very nice to see you, Diane, and if you would, regale us with hopefully
All
good
the
news.
good news. I don't know, but hi, it's good to see everybody. I'm really glad I got to listen to the honoring of Stan. Thank you for everything from me as well. So, COVID, mostly about COVID. We're now almost 3 years into the pandemic, but we're still in the pandemic. So I'll give you a brief update. Worldwide, as of today, there have been over 655 million cases, 655 million cases and 6.6 million deaths attributed to COVID in the world. Next slide. United States, we're at almost, oh, will you go back one slide? Almost a million confirmed, almost 100 million confirmed cases and over 1 million deaths. Next slide. In terms of trends, this is the United States epi curve. You see things are sort of flattened out, but not totally gone away. We're still averaging 58 to 59,000 cases a day. And according to this from today, from the New York Times, there may have been a lag or lapse in reporting, and that we continue to monitor closely what may be an increase in cases. That prediction based on the fact the test positivity rate is increasing, and that may in fact reflect the cases are being underreported. Next slide. This is New York State, similar curve, similar kind of flattening of cases, but increase in positivity rates. Next slide, and this is Otsego County. As of today, very similar curve. Cases are up a little, but with really low numbers. That's probably less relevant. What is relevant is that we do know that cases are being underreported here in the county. Anecdotally, we all know, well, I know people who've had COVID in the last week, home tested, and didn't think to report to the county. Heidi feels this is pretty much the case, and is reflected in the fact, again, you're seeing a real bump up in test positivity rates here. Next slide. If you go now to our county website, you'll see this very bold dashboard. This was last updated on the 28th. This gives you a total number of cases for the year, pretty much, 2022, this being at the end of 2022. And if you can't do it from the slide, but if you go to the website, you can click the arrows underneath the total cases and total deaths, so that if you did so, you'd learn that in 2021 we had just over 6,000 cases, but 74 deaths. So, and back in 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a little over 2,000 cases and 18 deaths. County transmission level, I'll speak to that in a moment, but we've gone over this before. That's different than the community level. We are at a substantial transmission level, and part of that, again, goes back to the whole issue of our percent positivity cases. And our percent population fully vaccinated is about the same. Encouragingly, the 18% of the population 5 and over who have received the bivalent booster is a little higher than the national average, which is 15%. So it tells me that those people who have chosen to get vaccinated have gone ahead and afforded themselves of the bivalent new booster. Next slide. Again, the confusion, I think, between community levels and community transmission. The levels are designed to inform us, the public, about whether it may be a good idea to mask up when we're indoors. And we've been really good about posting that on our site. I think it's a little confusing that on county site they talk about transmission. That may more accurately reflect the amount of COVID in the community, but is meant more for the healthcare facilities to determine what they do in response to the pandemic. Next slide. Wastewater, what does that tell us? I think it tells us we still have substantial to high transmission of COVID-19 in our community. You can see in December, the last couple data points have kind of trended up. We were only at lower levels back a few times in the fall, and again, the previous spring. Next slide. So I think it's still valuable to be looking at that. Again, going back, we're at low community level right now, less than 100 per 100,000 cases, and certainly we still have hospital capacity. I did talk to the folks at Bassett today. The number of hospitalized patients in the network remains fairly stable over the last few months at 6 to 15 on any given day. In Fox, same thing, maybe 1 to 3 over the last week in the network, 1 to 3 admissions a day. So again, we still are seeing some sick people, we still are seeing some deaths. Next slide. Here again, we're back to the transmission. We're at a higher level than optimal. Next slide. Variants. So this is different than when I last reported to you. For a long time, so about a year ago, Omicron became the predominant variant. And then in the spring and summer, we moved into the BA 4 and 5 sweep. But you can see since the end of the fall, since October, we've seen a gradual increase in these subvariants. It's still Omicron, they're just further mutated to be considered identifiable as subvariants. In the Northeast, we have the highest percentage of the XBB subvariant, which is of concern because it seems, at least in vitro studies, to be a little more resistant to natural and vaccine-acquired antibodies. Again, epidemiologically, it'll take a while for that to play out. The other two variants, the BQ1 and the BQ11, are descendants of the BA5 variant. Next slide. What these next couple slides show, just real briefly, is that in spite of all that, our vaccines and our vaccine bivalent booster do seem to be still effective at reducing severe illness and death. This curve's from the CDC, and you see that the number of cases is in black for unvaccinated and in blue in vaccinated. So you're still seeing more spread in the unvaccinated. And then green at the very end, you see a small increased benefit from those who have gotten the bivalent booster. And another way of looking at it is you are 18.6% have that lower risk of dying from COVID-19, at least in October 2022 if you were unvaccinated, and also a 3.1 higher risk of testing positive in November if you were unvaccinated. So there's still some benefit, we think, of vaccinations and boosters in terms of getting COVID and becoming severely ill and dying of COVID. Next slide. And this was an interesting article that was published this month in the Journal of Public Health that talked about the different protection there may be, that was the question of the study, between those who are naturally have acquired immunity from having been infected and those who have been vaccinated. And interestingly, what this showed is that in people that were previously infected, they were a little less likely than those who had been vaccinated to acquire COVID, to become infected. However, those people who were vaccinated, compared with those who had naturally acquired COVID, were more protected, less likely to die, and less likely to visit emergency rooms and be hospitalized, and the percentages are there. So what this tells me is that there's still benefit to being vaccinated. And when you hear people say, well, I had COVID, so I'm good to go. Well, I mean, there is some protection there, clearly, but there's added protection to vaccination. New news regarding vaccination is a couple of weeks ago, the FDA did give emergency authorization for the new bivalent booster down to age 6 months. So those very young children are now able to get the booster. There's going to be, in fact, the county's coming to Bassett Healthcare 125 Main, the pediatric office there, over the weekend to help increase that uptake. I think that's only for Bassett patients, but important to get the word out for those parents with young kids that those new boosters are now available. Next slide. Okay. Any other questions about COVID before I move on? Because the mayor wanted me to make sure I didn't forget the other respiratory illnesses.
I do have a quick question, Dr. Trojan. A few few slides back, there was that, the line of, that picked up with the boosters, that it looked like it was just a marginal improvement.
It was very marginal,
Over
yes.
not having a booster, and I don't wanna be counterintuitive
You're
in
right, no, it
my
did
narrative
show
here,
that.
but it doesn't seem like that's a significant improvement through.
Yeah, because the percentages below are comparing unvaccinated to those that are boosted. So yes, you're right, it doesn't seem like a huge added benefit. At least in this
Again, I'm not so sure
No,
about the
you're
messaging
right.
there.
You're right. The message wasn't so much about the booster, it was about the vaccines in general.
Right.
Good point. Oh, and so another thing about COVID, again, we don't know where we're going. There is uncertainty. Hopefully we'll continue to trend downward. But what the county's telling me, the hospitals are telling me in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a little bit of an uptrend in COVID, a little bit of a downtrend in flu. The federal government has reinstituted the free testing program. And I thought maybe perhaps we could put a link to that on our website. In recognition of the fact we may, after the holidays, see an uptick in cases. So again, a bit of uncertainty. I think it's important to remind people that vaccines are still available and effective, to still use all the other public health measures we use, masking up when we're, traveling perhaps, testing before we're gathering. I mean, all those tools are still available to people and I think should still be considered, especially for our high-risk populations. Okay, now RSV and flu. So hopefully so this was from a couple days ago on NBC. Flu and RSV perhaps are on the decline. You heard a lot about RSV in the news in November and December. It is primarily it's a respiratory virus that we mostly think about in terms of little kids, but adults can get it too. And again, our elderly, immunocompromised adults can become quite ill from RSV. The thought is because we were so sheltered for a couple of years, now we're out and about and we saw a big upsurge of it in November. Emergency rooms were overwhelmed, hospitals were overwhelmed. No hospitals in the Bassett network have inpatient pediatrics. So what they did see in our ERs were, lots of kids and some of those kids having to get transferred out of the communities we live in for higher level of care. But thankfully the numbers are really coming down. There's no vaccine for RSV, but there are some in the works. Flu. So flu, again, next slide. If you go to the county website, you'll find way down at the left, there's a link to, they now have this nice page talking about flu. Flu is a reportable illness in New York State. It's not so in all states. So sometimes comparing big picture things like mortality and rates and numbers is difficult. But for here, we know the number of flu because that is a reportable illness. In Otsego County so far, we've had 551 cases. Of those, 204 have come from Oneonta, by and large group A flu, and kind of across all age groups, but tending toward younger people. Next slide. And this is the interesting thing. This year is really different than previous years because we saw, if you look at the purple line on the left lower graph, that's this year. 2022 to 2023, and the flu season is defined beginning week 30. So we begin the flu season in October, and then it goes through till the spring of the following year. So we're in the 22-23 year. We've seen way more than in the previous 3 years, and we saw it rise up much, much sooner. Some of that, we think is just we're out and about more. We don't know yet. You can see in the year 21-22, which is blue last year, there was sort of this bivalent kind of wave. There was a similar rise in the late fall, and then it went down, and then it rose again in the spring. And I don't think anyone knows what it's going to do this year, which is another reason to encourage people to become vaccinated against the flu. Vaccine is still widely available in the community. So that's all I really had to say about the flu. Flu. Are there any questions about anything else?
Oops. It looks like not.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
very much. Moving on to our petitioners and public hearings. I see we don't have any public hearings scheduled, but we may have a few petitioners here. Do we have anybody who would like to speak? And would you get up and say who you are and where you live, and give us 3 minutes.
AJ Hamill, 20 Gardner Place, apartment 91, Oneonta, New York. First thing is I'd like to congratulate Councilwoman Emily Falco on her election for representing Ward 8. Second one is I was looking on the meeting minutes, and apparently Douglas Kendall is on the list of being appointed to the Zoning and Housing Board of Appeals. I can honestly say, after having served with Mr. Kendall on the St. James Episcopal Church vestry, he is not only qualified, but a strong and great leader. And I highly would request that you guys approve of him being a commissioner. The other one is, this might sound like the stupidest thing you've ever heard of, but I was looking on the City of Oneonta YouTube channel, and not all of the meetings are on there, so I was wondering what was going on with that.
Well, I know the website is in constant upgrade. If there's anything else you want to say about that?
If you can send me a list of which meetings,
Okay.
because the platform streams through YouTube, so if it streams, it should be on there.
Yeah, because I looked at the previous meetings and there wasn't anything on there. There was like very few meetings.
We'll look into it.
Okay. And that was it for me.
Okay. Any other petitioners?
Okay. Hi, good evening. I'm Carolyn Marks. I live at 18 Ravine Parkway North, and I'm also a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Where do I begin? Many, many years ago, but let's talk about what's been going on in the past number of years, and certainly this particular year. Did you get a chance to read my letter that I sent today about the homeless crisis in the city of Oneonta, New York? You haven't? Do you mind if I read it to you?
Did you email it to us?
I did not. I brought it, I'm sorry, I teach at the high school, so I asked my husband to bring it down.
Oh, it is like in our mailboxes?
It possibly.
Okay.
I just checked mine before I got up here and I didn't see anything.
Okay,
So,
would you
go
like
ahead,
mine?
read it.
Yeah.
Okay. I directed it to our mayor, Mark Drenick, and common council members. I've been observing this issue for quite some time, particularly over the course of the past year. Being on the Parks and Rec Commission, I spent a lot of time down in the parks at different hours of the day and night. I've spoken with many of the people in our community who are, at this particular time, homeless and not living in any type of housing. So I've gotten quite a cross-section of people that I've spoken with, but here I am. The homeless crisis in the city of Oneonta, New York. I do know that being homeless is not a crime, but a sizable homeless population is impacting community safety and quality of life in Oneonta, New York. I've called police on several occasions because I have my frequent walks through Oneonta. Most people know that I do that at all hours of the day and night and in all areas of the city. Witness loitering, littering, public urination, and defecation in our public parking garage and our neighborhood streets, in particular Elm Street. I have found people just a couple of days ago sleeping in a driveway between Ford Dew and the Episcopal Church. I've witnessed panhandling, drug dealing. I was actually asked if I wanted any, and using foul language and being aggressive to passerbys. And for example, I was one of them on Main and Elm Street neighborhood area. Homelessness is not someone else's issue. It's right here, and it's not in someone else's backyard. It is right here in our city, and it's having a noticeably negative impact on Main Street and downtown and the neighborhoods, and in particular on Elm Street. It's having a ripple effect throughout our community. It is impacting availability of healthcare resources for sure, crime and safety. I've been hearing all kinds of ways people are taking care of themselves. Workforce, they're not working, they tell me, because they can't find jobs, or they were promised jobs and there's nothing here for them. And use of our precious and limited resources and our tax dollars, Otsego County and City, I believe. Furthermore, homelessness is presenting many challenges for the present and will for the future if we don't address it immediately. It will benefit all of us to break the cycle of homelessness now and stop the increase of people being sent here for resources. What resources? A 10-bed warming station over here for an overnight stay until April? What is the plan for people after the warming station closes at 7:30 a.m. and out the door they go for the day? What they're doing, if anybody's been aware and walks up and down the street and out and about, they're loitering on Elm Street for hours and hours and hours on end. I have pictures, video to prove it. So what is the plan for the people after the warming station closes and when it closes in April? What is the city's comprehensive plan for dealing with this very apparent and noticeably chronic issue? And it is. Why are so many people being sent to Oneonta? In what ways did the city plan for the influx of people coming here? The homelessness also lacks general wellness care. Sleeping in the warming station and sleeping outdoors makes it difficult to ward off illnesses. They must be out of the warming station by 7:30 and then wander up and down Main Street and other residential streets the rest of the day until the Lord's table opens at 4:30. Where can they practice basic hygiene or engage in social distancing? Thus, airborne infections and communicable infections are more likely to occur, again impacting our limited healthcare system. I think Dr. Georgeson just mentioned that we do not have pediatric, what was that, Dr. Georgeson? Okay, thank you. People who are experiencing homelessness are placing an increased burden on our local and county government and taxpayers, which again impacts the local economy. People without housing are high consumer of public resources and generate expenses rather than income for the community. How are they being helped to find employment and more suitable housing if the plan is to stay in our community? Can Otsego County and the City of Oneonta really afford these additional expenses and employ the personnel needed to accomplish this monumental task at hand? Many of the homeless are struggling with mental illness and addiction and using alcohol and other drugs, obviously. I've been to Fordu, a number of the places around Elm Street. If they have to be hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital, if there's a crisis, where are they being sent? Where? Do we know? But where? Does Bassett or A.L. Fox Hospital have the capacity to treat people suffering from mental illness? I don't know about that. These hospitalizations will incur costs paid by the public tax dollar, which also affects our community well-being. Have you spoken to any of these people living in the streets or gotten a sense of why they are homeless and how they can help themselves with services to find ways out of homelessness? I have reached out to several, and the prevailing reason they came here or were sent here our way is the promise of resources, jobs, and assistance, and not one of them said they're receiving that. And not one of these people told me they did not have a home to go to. They do, but they came here with the promise that all these wonderful things were going to happen, and they are not. Sitting on St. James Episcopal front steps, Main Street, the streets, sleeping in our parks. I met a couple that slept in Newa Park for 5 days over the summer. I've reached out to several of them. Okay, this is not happening for them, therefore they spend time together on the streets because there's nothing in place for them to be productive. And they want to be. They are frustrated, as we should be. Finally, the homeless crisis is and will affect the downtown merchants and local businesses in the long run if this continues. The downtown business and shop owners depend on revenue from tourism, but there may be struggles eventually between merchants and homeless people. The city, seeking to increase tourism, will struggle with unburning Main Market and our local parks of homeless people who, out of no fault of their own, stroll the streets during the day and many sleep in our parks at night. You and we all owe it to our constituents, our neighbors, the people who live here. I've lived here my whole life, and I can tell you, The policies here are regressive. I do not see any progressive policy here with this. So you owe it to us and our neighbors, so that this issue is a win-win for everyone. For them, for us, for you, to keep our beautiful, vibrant Oneonta, the city of the hills, safe and secure for the families that call this home.
Thank you. Carolyn, I'm gonna ask that, we set up some time.
Yes, I would like to do that. I sent you an email and I think I left you a voicemail.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn, is it possible that you send us that letter via email?
I'm sorry.
Can you send that letter to us via email?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I will.
Do we have any other petitioners? We don't. All right, well, thank you very much. We'll close that part of the agenda and move on to our boards and commission reports, beginning with Councilmember Risberger and the Planning Commission.
Thank you. We met on December 27th, and we have a very full agenda. It started out with a discussion about a proposal to change Grant Street to Garthstam Way. We had 5 members of the soccer community attend, and although they are looking to change Grant Street to Garthstam Way, they said they would be willing to settle for an honorary name or to have that name put into any new development that may occur. They were asked if they had talked to SUNY, and for those who don't know what Garthstam was a very well-known and well-liked soccer coach for SUNY Oneonta, who changed soccer for SUNY and the community a few decades ago. So when they were asked if they had talked to SUNY about having a street name change on campus, they said they felt it would be too difficult to try that route and wanted to go through the city instead. The committee felt that although they understood the nature of the request, they felt that a street name change would be too cumbersome to the residents of that street and would look instead at potentially doing an honorary street change with requesting that an alumni group pay for whatever cost it would be to do that. So Chris Iacobucci is going to be looking into the cost and any options that are available for doing something like that, and then hopefully bring that back to our January meeting. The Deer Management Task Force, we had a very short discussion about that. The committee needed more time to review newer information that came forward, and we were asked to submit questions ahead of time to the task force, so then the task force will have a chance to answer those at the next meeting, which I did myself, and I don't know if you guys have yet or not, but we have time. And the watershed trails, and let me know if I missed anything with this. Mark met with a trail development group and discussed ideas. A conceptual proposal and a cost will be formed. This may include the pump track in the proposal. And information will be coming back to the committee within a couple months, and then we can discuss possible grant options to then start to hopefully bring this plan to fruition. Did I miss anything? That's good. Okay. Gardner Place reconstruction. This is regarding the resident survey results. Chris brought a lot of information forward. We unfortunately didn't have many people that live on the street answer the survey. I think we had a total of 6 that did out of, what's it, 16 or 18 houses?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah, which, so with the question of, do we put sidewalks on the west side of the street, which don't exist currently for most of the streets? 2 were for yes, 4 were no. What about trees on newly formed median on the west side? 2 were yes, 4 were no. Parking on the west side, 5 were yes. Parking on the east side was 0. Nobody wanted parking on the east side of the street. Changing the street to a one-way street, we had 1 yes, 4 no's, and 1 uncertain. So we all agreed that the complete streets process is very important. It's made a lot of positive changes to the city over the last almost 10 years now. But we have to make some accommodations since our streets here in Oneonta are not like most city streets. So we're recommending parking on the west side, maintaining two-way traffic, hopefully putting a small median on the west side if space permits, and definitely curbage on both sides. And I got more. Community gardens. Judy Pangman gave a short presentation on what's happening there. We're looking to, the plan is to put a 52-foot extension on the current garden and make that branch toward River Street. And the cost would be $27,800. It would be a $25,000 grant with a 10% match, and that grant is due on January 10th. Knowing Judy, it's probably done, or close to being, no, it's not done, sorry.
I wish. It would be
And
done.
in addition with the 52-foot extension of the current garden, we'll be adding fencing. There'll be a 10-foot wide gate, removal of the current end of the fence, adding 2 more water stations, about 30 tons of topsoil, I think you said, and 6 new raised beds, and there's some miscellaneous items. In addition to that, there's an additional grant that we're looking to get. That is a tree grant, and we're tying this into the Swart Wilcox house. And the plan is to try to recreate the apple tree, the orchard that they used to have. So we're looking to do potentially up to 12 apple trees. The fencing around those apple trees, since we have a deer population issue, so we need fencing, would come from the garden grant, from the other grant. So, and I don't know if I said that grant is due in May, so, is that right? Anything I missed on that?
It's first come, first served, so I'm trying to get that in by next week too.
Okay, all right. That's all I have.
Okay, well, that was a thorough synopsis of the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee, which you may have conflated with the Planning Commission meeting, but we'll look for questions on this, and Dave, I'm going to come back to you for the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Okay, so any questions, comments on the CLIC meeting? A lot went on.
Wait.
What?
Oh, yeah, never mind. That was the other one. I'm sorry.
No, it's all
I did
good.
get that one.
It's okay.
So, no questions?
You haven't confused all.
Nobody said anything till the end? So thanks.
Because you were rolling, man, you're doing a great job with that.
This also means I'm not ready for the planning commission report yet.
Oh, okay. Dave,
On Gardner,
Yeah.
overall though, there's no changes then. Don't they have parking on the west side now?
They currently have parking on the west side, not east side, but with the complete streets, if we stuck with the complete streets, we would change that narrow street to a one-way and have parking on both sides. Isn't that what we were initially thinking?
Parking on one side only.
Parking on one side would be
There's
on the
gonna
other
be a
side.
median, right, there's gonna be a median, and so we've worked with the neighbors, and we've come to this conclusion.
Correct.
That's good.
We had several public meetings, several chances for input.
Luke and I walked around, knocked on doors.
The curbing is a big part of it, yeah.
Well, it's good that we listen to the folks that live there.
Any other comments, questions? Dave, you want me to give you a break, and then we'll come back to you for planning?
I might have to bring this forward next month.
That's fine.
Because I thought I had the minutes and I do not have the minutes
No,
here.
no worries.
I apologize.
The applicant did not attend because they hadn't received their notice yet.
There you go. Thank you.
That's the extent of it?
Yeah, I knew there was one item on there.
Okay. All right, well, I think that fairly well covers it, and I doubt that there's any questions on that, and so we'll move, thank you very much, Dave. We'll move to the Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting, and I presume, Len, that'll be you providing the report? And before you do, I just want to publicly thank you for the work that you've done sharing that very important committee these last several years. You've done a really excellent job, so thank you.
Thank you. So we met December 27, and the agenda on tonight's meeting, motions 3 through 15 is the waiver from that meeting, except for motion 11. And most of the committee members say otherwise. I don't remember talking about motion 11, so if you want, Mayor, we can just move motion 11 to discussion. answer anybody's questions. If no questions, our local Daily Star newspaper, Vicky, wrote an article about motions 3 on tonight's agenda. I want to thank her for raising my concerns within that article of the folks that are on Suncrest Terrace, Overlook, and College Park. They have been enduring water issues, drinking water issues, and so I hope that fellow council members will work with the city staff and hopefully we can get something changed up there so that those folks have continual clean drinking water.
Very good. Any questions, comments? Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. And from here, we move on to our city administrator's report. Mayor?
Let's run through our current employment opportunities available for people to apply. We're looking for 2 firefighters. Exam is scheduled for February 11th. The application due date is coming up soon. It's January 12th. We're seeking 2 positions on our DPW streets crew. Prefer someone with CPL, but we'll take the right candidate at a different title if that's what's available. Also looking for 1 on our DPW water and sewer crew. That's a new position that was funded first time this year in the 2023 budget. Also looking for 1 full-time position on buildings and grounds crew as a maintenance worker. We're still accepting applications for deputy finance director, civil service exam. That's to be held February 11th. Applications are due on the 15th of January. We're looking for a part-time maintenance worker for the code enforcement office. Also 4 part-time bus drivers and a part-time bus fleet. Some unfortunate news, we did receive word from FEMA that we're unsuccessful in our 2 grant applications, one being the Assistance to Firefighters grant to fund a $1.5 million fire engine replacement. Also unsuccessful is a SAFER grant, that's the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response grant. That was a $2.1 million application to hire up to 8 additional firefighters to improve our emergency response capability. You'll recall that that's somewhat connected to the proposed ambulance transport contract that we've been discussing as a possibility with Fox Hospital. That's still in play, still something that's being discussed. Not receiving this grant doesn't mean we cannot do that potentially, but it's still out there to be determined. I'll provide a full quarterly staffing update at the finance meeting on Monday. Our DPW crew is working to clear some small trees and vegetation from utility right-of-ways. It's something that's been on our to-do list for, well, I guess it should have been on the to-do list for about the last 50 years, but there's some places that have gotten overgrown that we're catching up on, places that cut through private property, we have easements on that sort of thing, so it's a good thing to catch up on. Brook Street and Clinton Street culvert replacement design is nearly complete. I think we have 90% review meeting next week. Should be bidding that in February. And lastly, I think we announced this on Facebook, possibly Nixle as well. The city seeking public input, potential uses for the Armory, also known as the ACC House and Junior Municipal Building, officially known. Visit the city Facebook page or the website to find the link and take that brief survey. It's very brief. You don't need to really know much about the building other than it's city-owned and it exists. It's a historical building. You don't have to have been inside it or played basketball or soccer or volleyball or one of the team centers to do the survey. We're really just looking for input on what people want to see there, where they see it be. What are they as taxpayers or residents of the city looking for the city to provide with that space? I mentioned the gym, the team center, those are well-utilized spaces. We've got a lot of space there that's very underutilized. So we're looking for some community input. I think that survey is open through the end of this week. That's all I have.
Do we have questions? Yes, Dave.
In regards to the survey, Greg, did we reach out to the members that actually utilize the Armory now before that survey went out? Do we know what was in the survey? And the reason I ask is because I heard from some of them, and some of them were in a near panic, thinking they were going to get removed from the Armory.
Okay, well, I apologize if that misperception got out there somehow. The survey is just to look at what sort of uses might be put in that aren't there now. Not
I explained that to them, but I think if looking at the way the survey was presented, I could see how they thought otherwise. So I think going forward, if we do something like that again, it might help to reach out to those groups ahead of time and say, look, this is coming out, but this is why we're doing it. So.
Yeah, I mean, both groups, maybe not all of them, I think I've talked to a few of them about the study, not specifically the survey.
Done?
To piggyback on that, Dave, are those groups participating in the survey from your perspective?
I believe some of them were planning on after that. I mean, once I calmed them down a little bit, but they thought they had to start looking for other places to go.
So should we maybe kick the deadline out a few more weeks so then these groups that are utilizing that space, we can get their input? Just to make sure.
I don't, from my perspective, we have their input. Those are very successful spaces. Right now, we know what's been successful there. I think we're looking for what else and how can we further enhance the space. Not that they shouldn't.
I don't think we need to extend it because of that. I mean, they reached out to me, it was before the holidays, so I don't think there's any reason to extend it.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you very much, Rick. And we have a PowerPoint. Do we? We do. Okay, so ad hoc groups. We've been talking about that for a while, obviously, and one of the great satisfactions for me these past 12 months has been the number of community members who stepped up to try to either solve or strategize a way forward for Oneonta across a myriad of different concerns and issues, and I'm very pleased with the work that's been done. But like any group or groups that are working side by side, if they have, if they're in a silo, there's going to be less likelihood of them being able to take advantage of some of the work that others have done. So knocking down the silos, very important. So having a communication strategy for not just those various committee members, but also for the public is the purpose of this website. So it's called All for Oneonta. It is a public-facing shared resource for the committee members and for the community. Thank you. So this is set up for both mobile and desktop. You're looking at the mobile version right now. You see a drop-down navigation. Those four little lines up in the upper right-hand corner that you're probably familiar with. There's also a link to the Oneonta Community Initiative application there on the front page, and we can move on. I should tell you too, the All for Oneonta can be reached as All for Oneonta, the number 4, or All for FOR. It presents itself more readably with the number 4 for the word Oneonta, and some of that's just a graphical and a marketing decision. So this is the actual main page, the splash page, and you'll see the content reiterated here in a different format. Across the top, you've got a navigation that's in the menu bar, right? And you'll see in the lower portion that's black, you've got links to the city's website preeminently, and then both the mayor's and the city clerk's emails. The other thing is that you see this little kind of turquoise rectangle in the lower left-hand corner. That is something you can click on, and it'll make the website ADA compliant for whatever issue that you may bring to it, visual or hearing or any number of other different concerns. So you can click on that at any time. So the way it will work in both, it does work in fact in both the mobile version and on the desktop, is that there's a drop-down navigation to the individual ad hoc committees, and you'll see them listed there. It's white against white, so I might have to think about that. But you see them, and the content for those is managed and updated by the committee members. We've just now finished a workflow for all the committees, so they know exactly how to do that. Each committee has a unique login and password. And just as another bit of reference, we've got a Google map of Oneonta that can be brought up and allow people who, may need the resource to be able to navigate around. And so, moving on, we have, you saw that we have the committees and task forces. We also have the housing work groups separated out as a unique navigation. There's 7 work groups plus a page of shared resources. And you saw the photos that in the previous slides, they've now changed. Those are all OCI, Oneonta Community Initiative documentations, the things that folks have been doing. And as we continue to get that documentation, those will be added to this page, and those will be added to essentially a carousel. We'll do we'll tag it for what things are so that people know what they're looking at. And moving on. There's also a contact in the upper right, as you see, and when you do click on that, it'll take you to an opportunity to provide your own input as a community member. Also, it's me soliciting participation, so careful what you click on. And then those messages are sent to the mayors, to my email. And we can move on. So what I'm doing here, they're all set up the same way. Every committee page is set up exactly the same way. But I'm going to use the Deer Management Task Force page as an example. They've been pretty active. So you'll see the meeting time, date, and location that gets popped in by the individuals on the committee. You'll see that bar at the top. Those are that'll take you to the minutes and notes that are being generated by the meetings. And then you see the area that's below that thin black line. That's a residence for data and documents and other resources. So looking at the, again as an example, this is staying with the Deer Management Task Force. This is a compilation of the task force's meeting minutes and notes. It's displayed by date, and it's readable, and it's downloadable. And moving on. Again, staying as long as we're in the Deer Management Task Force. Documents are embedded, and they're scrollable and enlargeable and navigable as posts. So at the very bottom, you may not be able to see it, but you can see previous post, next post. So you don't really have to go back to your main menu and go to try to find another thing that you may be interested in terms of minutes. You can just kind of scroll through. So that'll keep the number of open tabs manageable for people, especially people who are on a cell phone. And moving on. Committee members and the public will have and have currently easy access to these foundational documents. Anytime an ad hoc is put together, there's some thought as to the construct, the goals, the timelines, and reporting expectations. So all of that is laid out there in this particular case for the Deer Committee. And moving on. And then proposals, and that's the whole purpose of these ad hoc committees. They are not empowered to do anything other than come up with strategies, come up with proposals, come up with recommendations, bring those to the various committees, and those committees hopefully, through the, in the case of the housing work groups, the Housing Commission, ultimately our hope is that those will find their way to council through various committees and boards. The proposals and reports are posted by those committees, and they are reviewable in real time by the public. As an example, this is the Deer Management proposal that's currently under consideration by the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee. And moving on. On top of that, the website will take videos, it'll take PowerPoints, it'll take all these other kind of resources as well. So they can be downloaded in a lot of cases, and they can all be viewed within the context of the website. Moving on. Now, if you're in a location, again, we've been in the Deer Management Task Force groups location here for a while, you can still navigate. You don't have to go back to your main page or try to, figure out a way by following the breadcrumb trail backward. You can simply go up to the navigation bar and click on in this particular case, the housing work groups. You can go to the other committees and task forces as well and find what you want to find. So while you're in that section, you can navigate to other areas of the website. This example is the Deer Task Force moving to the housing work groups. Most specifically, looking to click on and kind of use their shared resources for their own research. And moving on. So this is the housing work groups area, and again, all of these are set up the same. And you'll see below that thin black line, you've got the various resources that they've posted, and they include Google Docs, and they include, you know, any number of different things that are certainly of use to the Housing Commission in its entirety, but also some of these things are usable for other folks working on other things. For instance, Filterable Map might be of interest to other committees, so they can click on that Filterable Map and next. And that'll take them to this absolutely wonderful piece of art that was generated in-house. Very proud of this, really good stuff. Filterable, and here's what's great. This is filterable. You can look at this in real time, move from one, filter to another, or add or subtract or whatever, and really, and come in, come out. This is just one example of the many different types of resources that can be posted, robust documents with multiple filters and applications. They'll provide valuable information to the committees, but also to the public. And my expectation is with each new entry into the all4oneonta.com database, it'll become a resource for future city planning across any number of different disciplines, including any number that I haven't even thought of. And on that left-hand side in a smaller typeface, it's just a note that the website's been produced by the mayor's office with the support and assistance of a new company in Oneonta. Somebody who used to work for me started going into the business called Lily Pad Creatives, but it's owned by the city, it's copyrighted the city of Oneonta, New York. And that's the extent of it. So if anybody's got any questions, that wraps up the PowerPoint. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take them. Glenn?
Who's doing all the data processing?
Well, there really isn't any at this point. So LilyPad Creatives helped me put together the thing. And at this point, it really is in the hands of the various committees. So they will have a secure login, and they will be able to post and, and in pretty much real time from the time that they decide they want to do it to the time it gets online. And because it's so, it's very simple structure, so it's kind of easy to understand where what you want to put should go. So
We're not asking city staff to do it.
no, gosh, no. Emily?
Yeah, I'm curious about the map and the information and how is that maintained and kept updated?
Well, that map that's the city's, and there could be any number of links to city properties that, when I talk about properties, city assets, as they are currently in existence and might be generated down the road. So that's part of, the job. So there's nothing special that's being done because of their inclusion in this website. It's just this.
Is it something that's kind of automatically generated as?
Yeah, it's a live link. It's a live link. So basically,
okay.
yeah. So it'll take you to the link. Go ahead, Chris.
So we have a program called ArcGIS, and we are continually updating all of the assets that we have throughout the city, all of our utilities, property information. We constantly are updating that information on a day-to-day basis outside of what you're doing here. So we have that information and just simply turning layers on, turning layers off to create whatever maps you may need.
Okay, so it kind of automatically feeds into it. There's not additional legwork that you have to do to go into that map and enter.
And that is the beauty of this. As we were building it from square one, it's do not task city staff with anything else. They are already busy enough. So, but one of the nice things that comes of this too is that rather than Judy and Steve constantly being asked by the Housing Commission and their various work groups come visit with us and tell us the very same thing about somebody else, we can put that online. It's shareable by everybody, and that should go a long way towards relieving city staff's input to the work of these work groups.
Yeah, I think it's really great. I was just kind of curious also for the public to know, how do we know if it is up to date or how often it's being updated? So it's just kind of always being updated.
Yeah, each individual committee is going to be responsible for their own upkeep, essentially, but it's to their advantage to have their committee's information updated. In a lot of cases, these committees are reporting to various legit, sitting committees, like for instance, economic development. Well, we have two groups that have yet to really meet, but they'll both be reporting to the Economic Development Committee. There's their management task force I was just referencing reports to the CLIC, and on and on. So there's going to be an expectation that their material is posted, in a timely fashion. It's going to be good for them.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to our consent agenda. I'll be removing item motion 11, moving that to general discussion. But outside of that, we'll rock and roll. With number 1, the approval of the minutes. Motion that the Common Council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held December 20th, 2022. Motion number 2, that the Common Council approves the warrants totaling $607,899.94, and the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. Motion number 3, that the Common Council approves the following resolution. Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Bipartisan Infrastructure Law General Supplemental Funds, DWSRF, project number 18197, WTP, distribution and storage upgrades. Whereas the City of Oneonta submitted an application for Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL, funding to supplement the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, WIA, it's called that, grant for its water treatment plant distribution and storage upgrades project. And whereas the city has been awarded up to $2 million in BIL grant funds and $3,072,625 in interest-free financing supplementing the NYS WIA grant of up to $3 million awarded on April 25th, 2022. And whereas the city accepts the terms of the BIL grant and in consideration of the promises, representations, and assurances provided by the city to fulfill all grant requirements, hereby resolves that the mayor is authorized to execute, or cause to be executed, all necessary agreements on behalf of the city of Oneonta, and be it further resolved that all necessary budget amendments, and transfers for said grant are authorized, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion number 4, that the Common Council approves the following resolution. Clean Water State Revolving Fund Bipartisan Infrastructure Law General Supplemental Funds, CWSRF, project number C454470301, wastewater treatment plant upgrade. Whereas the city applied for and has been awarded $2,626,500 in BIL grant funds and $2,626,500 in interest-free financing through the Environmental Facilities Corporation, EFC, for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. And whereas the city accepts the terms of the BIL grant and interest-free financing through EFC, and in consideration of the promises, representations, and assurances provided by the city to fulfill all grant requirements, hereby resolves that the mayor is authorized to execute, or cause to be executed, all necessary agreements on behalf of the city of Oneonta, and be it further resolved that all necessary budget amendments, and transfers for said grant are authorized, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion number 5, that the Common Council designates the Daily Star as the official newspaper for all publications of all such matters as the Common Council may direct in compliance with Section C39 of the City Charter. Motion number 6, that the Common Council will continue to follow the principal rules governing motions for meetings of the Common Council for the year 2023. Motion number 7, that the Common Council concurs with the mayor's appointment of Council Member Katie Lapari-Shu as acting mayor for 2023. Motion number 8, that the Common Council authorizes the Finance Director to borrow funds, if necessary, during 2023 in anticipation of receipts of revenues that would be derived from property taxes and/or other income sources. Motion number 9, that the Common Council designates the Bank of Cooperstown, Community Bank, Key Bank, NBT Bank, and NYCLASS as depositories for all or part of city funds during 2023. Motion number 10, that the Common Council concurs with the Mayor's recommendations and approves the following paid appointments. Judy Sweet as Bingo Inspector with an expiration date of January 14th, 2024. Mark Simonson, City Historian with an expiration date of January 14, 2024. Liz Lauritsen, Deputy Purchasing Agent, December 31, 2023. Diane Georgeson, Health Officer, January 14th, 2024. And David Mertzig, City Attorney, January 14th, 2024. We'll skip over motion 11. Moving to motion 12, that the Common Council designates City Clerk Carrie Ann Harrington as the Airport Manager for the Albert S. Nader Regional Airport and authorizes a $2,000 annual wage stipend to the City Clerk Harrington to perform additional duties related thereto effective January 4, 2023. Motion number 13, that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a gift in the amount of $100 from an anonymous donor to be restricted for the Fire Department and to authorize any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. Motion number 14, that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a gift in the amount of $5,000 from an anonymous donor to be restricted for the Mayor's Cup Soccer Tournament and to authorize any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. And finally, motion number 15, that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a gift in the amount of $55,000 from an anonymous donor to be restricted for the purposes of the future purchase of an ambulance for the use by the Oneonta Fire Department and to authorize any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. Do I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought we did. What do we want to pull?
Number 10.
Number 10. Thank you very much. And
Number 7.
number 7. And 12. That's all, huh? All right. Well, on the balance of it, minus 7 and 10 and 12 motions, do I have a motion to approve? Mark is the first, followed by Scott. Sorry, Emily. And
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Bristol?
Yes.
Councilmember Parsons?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Bud? Aye.
all right. So we'll start with the motion number 7. We'll just take this in numerical order. Motion number 7 was pulled by Dave.
I move.
Oh, geez, my God. Second you think I'd have it.
I move it.
All right, so we got a motion to approve, followed by Scott.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mayor Drenick and Mayor Herzig for giving me the opportunity to be the deputy mayor, or acting mayor, deputy mayor, apparently acting mayor, for the last 3 years. And I encourage everybody to vote for Councilmember Shu, Perry Shu, for this position. I was approached earlier today by someone asking me if I'd asked to be removed from this position. I just want to let everybody know that was not the case. This was the mayor's choice. He did this on his own. I actually didn't find out about it until I read the agenda. So, but I encourage everybody to vote yes. I will be voting yes.
Appreciate that. All right, any further discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Bristol?
Yes.
Councilmember Parsons?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Felton? Aye.
All right.
Sure.
All right. Motion number 10. Do I have a thank you, Dave, followed by Luke? And who pulled this?
That was me. I just, me with my really specific questions. So I noticed that Lisa's appointment ends on a different date than the other appointments, and I wondered what the reason was for that.
So, Lisa, Liza?
Yeah.
Short answer is I don't know. Dave? It's a city appointment for the deputy purchasing agent. It's just always run the calendar year. I don't know if there's a specific reason why it does, but
Okay.
Dave, if you have any.
That's as good an explanation as there is. It's just because she's an employee, it's just been done that way historically.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Any further discussion?
Just a
Yeah.
point of clarification, this year, the finance committee was asked by our city attorney to no longer write the checks to David Merzig, but to write it to his firm. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm happy that, as the finance committee requested, I'm having, another opinion given on the amendment, and when I get an answer to that, I'll bring it back to the finance committee.
Okay, so that's why we're looking at David's name instead of his firm's? Okay.
Good. Further discussion?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Falco?
All right, motion number 12, do I have a motion to approve? Dave followed by Katie, and Scott, I'm pretty sure I know why you pulled this.
Yeah, I got abstained from the vote, so it was either that or leave it on the consent agenda and abstain from the whole thing.
Further discussion?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Abstain.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Falco?
All right, so now for discussion, we'll go back to motion number 11, that the common council concurs with the mayor's recommendations and approves the following appointments to the city boards or commissions. Board of Electrical Examiners, we have Brad Smith with a January 14th, 2026 expiration date, Ken Hoteling with a January 14th, 2026 expiration date, and Steve McClintock, January 14th, 2026. For the Board of Public Service, Marjorie Mertzig, January 14th, 2026 expiration, Dana Marie Levinson, January 14th, 2026, and Charles Hartley, January 14th, 2026 expiration date. For the Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights, Paul Conway, January 14th, 2026, Lynn Bailey, January 14th, 2026 expiration date. For the Housing Commission, Jared Goss, with an expiration date of January 14th, 2026. For Parks and Recreation, Carolyn Marks, January 14th, 2026 is her expiration date. Planning Commission, we're looking at Danny Lappin with a January 14th, 2026 expiration date. Glenn Pichardo, January 14th, 2026. And Marcella Micucci, January 14th, 2026 expiration date. And finally, on the Zoning and Housing Board of Appeals, Lori Zimnowitz, January 14th, 2026, and Douglas Kendall, January 14th, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve? Katie, and followed by Mark. And discussion. Dave.
I plan on voting yes on all of these, but I have some concerns that I think need to be brought forward. After tonight, we're still gonna have 13 vacancies on our standing commissions. That's a lot. That's a lot of vacancies. I've been on council for a long time, people know that, but it's a lot of vacancies. Then I went through our ad hoc committees. I think we have at least 80 people on ad hoc committees. And I'm not exactly sure if that number is correct, because when I went to the Oneonta, the All For Oneonta site, not all of them have their members listed right now. So it could be as high as 100 members on different ad hoc committees. So I feel like the committees we really need to focus on first. I mean, not to say we don't need to focus on ad hoc committees, but I think the ones we really need to focus on the most are the standing committees, because they're standing committees for a reason. I mean, they're what keep this city going outside of our city staff. And if those aren't filled, they can't do the business that's really important to the people. So.
But we are working on filling. Any other discussion?
I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. Another concern is we put people on these committees and then we don't always have a majority when they show up. And we have our city staff that's coming in, spending time. Some of them have traveling to get back home, and it's not fair to their home life and stuff, where they're already putting in 8, 10, 12 hours here, and then they're waiting for a committee that, you know, may not have enough people. And I think the chair of those committees need to start pulling their people beforehand, making sure they're gonna have enough for that meeting, so that our city staff knows what they can do. You know, I just think that's a fair expectation from our city staff that, you know.
I think this is in reference to the planning commission that recently had a meeting where we didn't have enough members. And we had people in the pews waiting to have business done, and we couldn't do it.
Right, so it's a good point, having some canvassing done ahead of time would make a ton of sense. And those folks, I'll just say before I move on to you, Lynn, those folks that we are engaging in a 2- and 3-year, in most cases, appointment, those conversations are being had to make certain that we have people who are, you know, absolutely engaged in that, so that we can count on their attendance. But go ahead, Lynn.
I just want to also point out that we've had some folks that took their positions very seriously within the commissions and boards and committees, and then they term out, and while they were on those boards and commissions, they gathered a lot of knowledge and even took furthering education, and we lost that historical perspective. These might be folks that we can reach out and repopulate the 13 positions that David just mentioned, because I know of a couple of them that would be, we could desperately need and use that knowledge base again. And then we could avoid the planning commission maybe not being able to meet. And also, I think ZBA's been having some folks that haven't been showing up, so it's good to see Lori and Doug are great people, and I know they'll take their position seriously.
And to your point, that's very much the construct of a lot of our conversations is, you've turned out here, but would you be interested in that? And can we count on you for a similar level of commitment? So, yep, it's great to bring new people to the conversation, absolutely, and we're trying to do that. But it's also very important that we retain the institutional knowledge as much as we possibly can in a city of our size. It's not like we have, you know, we're not a million people here, so we need to make certain that we're using every available asset. Agreed. Further conversation for discussion? Yes.
I'm just wondering where I could find information about what vacancies are currently, or like where, like what commissions need more people, because I'm happy to also do. Okay, great. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, very good. If that's the end of the discussion on this, we can take a vote.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Rashid?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Felton?
Aye.
Great. And now moving on to additional business. We have 30-day advance notice form received for a new application for a liquor license for Nag's Bar and Kitchen to be located at 221 Main Street, which would allow for the service of liquor, wine, beer, and cider. And I don't know if we need a motion approval, but would you, do we have any conversation that we want to have around this? Any reason that we would want, yes, go ahead.
Say as the representative of the 8th Ward, I'm thrilled to have another business occupying a place on Main Street, and I wish them a lot of luck.
Good. So we're not going to hold them to that 30 days then?
Yeah.
That's the general consensus on council?
Correct.
Yeah, great to have another business.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, I guess correspondence, do we have any?
No.
All right, any need for an executive session? In that case, unless there's It is not.